I will describe in detail the 7th verse of Rasaratnakara, Rasayankhand. We're going straight to the core of the primary source material today to unpack the precise, highly systematic detoxification protocol outlined right here in this specific verse. We'll examine the original Sanskrit, the exact substances and quantities mandated, and see exactly how this ancient alchemical methodology actually holds up under the rigorous lens of modern biochemistry and toxicology.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, decoding the 7th verse. Then, the detoxification methodology. Classical text comparisons, a modern biochemical review, evaluating the claims, and finally, conclusions and future research. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Decoding the 7th verse of the Prathama Upadesha.
All right, let's dive into the manuscript, focusing all our attention on verse 7. You see, in the context of the Rasayankhand, which is the section entirely dedicated to rejuvenation and alchemical therapies, this verse is basically a non-negotiable prerequisite. Before taking any advanced alchemical medicines or heavy metal preparations, the text dictates that the physical body absolutely must be systematically prepared and purged of existing impurities. This isn't just some abstract philosophy, you guys. It's a highly specific physical instruction.
Let's break down the syntax layer by layer, moving from the original Sanskrit to its simple English meaning. The text reads, Griste telam tu kar shekam, saptahat sarva dosha jit. When we look at the semantic breakdown, grife telam refers to the major substances, right? That's ghee, clarified butter, and medicinal oil. Then, karshakam specifies the exact quantity, which is 1 karsha, or roughly 12 grams. Saptahat gives us the duration of exactly 7 days. And through its onway, or logical sequence, we arrive at the result sarva dosha jit, meaning it conquers all doshas. Put simply in English, taking exactly 1 karsha of these specific fats for 7 consecutive days clears the body's biological impurities and toxic load.
Section 2. The detoxification methodology, also known as snehana or purvakarma.
This brilliantly details the physical process of bodily detoxification. We're looking at exact quantities of fats and a strict 7-day time frame specifically designed to purify the body. The philosophical purpose here aligns perfectly with the physical action. Think of it this way. You literally cannot dye a dirty cloth, just like you can't rejuvenate a toxic body. The primary substances, heavy lipids like ghee or specific medicinal oils, are taken internally in a highly controlled pharmacological dose of 1 karsha. That's a crucial point. This isn't about nutrition or a diet plan. It's a strict dosing schedule. Over exactly 7 days, this process called snehana literally translates to oleation. The body is systematically saturated with fats to loosen and detach deep-seated toxins before any actual rejuvenation therapies even begin.
Section 3. Classical Ayurvedic text comparisons.
So how does this specific alchemical verse stack up against the established gold standards of classical Ayurveda? Well, if we compare it to the massive, foundational texts like the Charaka Samhita, specifically Sutrasthana chapter 13 on Sneha, and the Ashtanga Hridaya Sutrasthana chapter 16, we see a totally shared historical methodology regarding oleation therapy prior to rejuvenation. Both of these huge texts dedicate entire chapters to exactly what verse 7 states in just a single line. They confirm that a maximum of 7 days is the precise time frame required for total internal lipid saturation. Go beyond 7 days, the texts actually warn that the body becomes habituated to the fats and the whole detoxification effect basically stops. Verse 7 elegantly compresses this vast clinical consensus into one incredibly concise, actionable formula. And it doesn't stop there. The Shangdar Samhita's middle section and the Bhav Prakash Nigantu independently validate this exact 7-day lipid-based preparatory protocol. They completely reinforce the classical claim of using fats to prepare the body's internal systems. These texts all agree on the specific plant oils and clarified animal fats used, confirming that this 1 karsha dose, again about 12 grams, is a scientifically calculated threshold to stimulate the digestive fire without totally overwhelming the liver. Section 4. Modern Biochemical and Toxicological Review.
So the absolutely crucial point here is, what does modern chemistry actually say about consuming heavy fats for 7 days to clear out toxins? Believe it or not, this ancient practice directly mirrors the modern biochemical mechanism known as lipophilic toxin extraction. Modern biochemistry tells us that many of the absolute most stubborn environmental toxins and heavy metals are lipophilic. What does that mean? It means they store themselves deep in our fat cells, not in our water-based blood. So you can't just drink water to flush them out. You need a fat-based solvent to dissolve and mobilize them.
Looking at this from a modern toxicological perspective, it's pretty mind-blowing. These specific quantities of ghee and oil act as carriers, literally binding to cellular waste to facilitate safe excretion. In pharmaceutical science, this is practically identical to lipid-based drug delivery and extraction. When you ingest 1 carshell of ghee daily for 7 days, the saturated fats enter the bloodstream and tissues, essentially dissolving and dislodging those fat-soluble metabolic wastes and trapped heavy metals. The fats bind to these toxins, drawing them right into the gastrointestinal tract where they can be naturally expelled. We're talking about a highly sophisticated, scientifically sound method of endogenous toxin mobilization.
Section 5. Evaluating the claims, ancient versus modern.
Let's take a step back and impartially separate the unproven esoteric claims from the scientifically backed historical significance. Now, while we obviously cannot prove things like complete cellular immortality or the more mystical alchemical promises of eternal youth, the historical belief in physical purification is heavily supported by modern evidence of lipid-based toxin mobilization. The classical claim of complete dosha clearing maps perfectly onto the modern biological process of reducing systemic oxidative stress by flushing out stored lipophilic toxins. The ancient authors of the Rasaratnakara clearly observed the clinical outcomes of this biological mechanism and recorded it right here as the essential 7th verse.
For any researchers out there wanting to dig deeper into the modern validation of this methodology, I highly recommend using these specific keywords on PubMed and Google Scholar. Search for things like lipophilic toxin extraction, Ayurvedic Snehana pharmacology, lipid-based drug delivery, or endogenous toxin mobilization. If you do, you'll find modern review articles validating this exact ancient detoxification protocol. In fact, studies repeatedly demonstrate statistically significant reductions in fat-soluble toxins like PCBs and pesticides following these exact multi-day ghee ingestion protocols.
Section 6. Conclusions and future research.
Let's move to our final analysis and see how this all builds a bridge between ancient alchemy and modern science. The major takeaway today is that this 7th verse isn't just some historical ritual. It's a biochemically sound precursor to modern toxicology that absolutely demands further clinical research. Historically, it's significant because it standardized a complex biological process into a single memorable metric, 1 karsha, 7 days. In terms of modern significance, it gives us a well-documented framework for natural, lipid-based cellular detoxification. Moving forward, future research and clinical trials should definitely focus on testing the efficacy of these specific oleation methods against modern environmental toxins and microplastics that get trapped in human adipose tissue.
This brings up a fascinating question. If a single line detailing ghee and oil from a medieval alchemical manuscript accurately outlines a completely functional system of lipophilic toxin extraction, we have to ask ourselves what other lost biochemical truths might be hiding in plain sight within these ancient alchemical Sanskrit verses. It brilliantly illustrates the value of these tests, leaving us to wonder what other modern scientific breakthroughs are just waiting to be decoded. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning.